is the Emerald Archer. Originally created as a sort of Batman clone in the beginning, Oliver Queen has since carved out a niche for himself, emerging from the shadow of Batman to become another DC Comics legend. Also featured in this issue, and the last story, we are introduced to the future King of Atlantis, Aquaman, who becomes a regular staple in the Justice League and another DC icon. One legendary issue, two iconic first appearances. In this episode of Tony's Comic Spotlight, we will celebrate the first appearances of Green Arrow and Aquaman by shining the spotlight on More Fun Comics issue number 73 from 1941. Story number 1, Dr. Fate in Mr. Who. Dr. Fate encounters Mr. Who for the first time. Mr. Who has invented and taken Solution Z, which transforms him from a weakling into a large, strong man and energizes him with superhuman powers, including regeneration of lost limbs, ability to grow gigantic, and invisibility. He and his art museum robbery gang encounter Dr. Fate, who disrupts two armed robberies and catches several henchmen, with Mr. Who escaping both times. With expensive loot, Fate tracks down Who and confronts him in his laboratory. Fisticuffs ensue, and Fate is left stuck in a giant cobweb, but unsupervised. At the mercy of a giant spider, Fate sends rays of pure force beating outward from him until the spider is stunned, then strangles it with its own web. Who ends up fleeing in a speedboat out into a large body of water with Dr. Fate in aerial pursuit. There is a short scuffle, punctuated at the end by Dr. Fate hurling Mr. Who right through the hull of the boat. Story number 2, Green Arrow, the case of the namesake murders. Green Arrow and Speedy, armed with conventional arrows and equipped with a super streamlined powerful car called the Aeroplane, uncover the identity of a cunning murderer and take him down in time to save most of the threatened members of the famous History Club. The villain, Ezra Sampson, dies in a high-speed hot pursuit car crash when Green Arrow punctures a tire, causing Sampson's car to crash through a barrier and off an embankment. Story number 3, Radio Squad, Murder Takes the Spotlight. Larry Trent, his partner Sandy Keene, and Larry's girlfriend Lorna Drake attend a rodeo. Sparky Sanders, the rodeo owner, performs a steer bulldogging stunt which goes wrong when the animal is shot with an arrow and goes wild. Harry leaps into the corral to save his life. Sparky is the brother of Lorna's best friend, Emmy, who suspects that her former suitor, wealthy Jasper Rawdon, was behind the nearly deadly stunt. Larry and Sandy investigate, develop a theory about one of the musicians, a guest violinist whose name nobody had caught, and follow up on a hunch by visiting the Rex-built apartments where Sparky lives. The house detective lets them into Sanders' apartment just in time to interrupt 3 burglars, the second-story mob, and catch at least one of them. On the sidewalk out front, the burglar's boss kidnaps Emmy, and Larry sees this happen from upstairs. Sparky joins Sandy and Larry to chase them. Emmy is driving, allowing the villain, who turns out to be Rawdon, armed with an arrow-shooting trick violin, to take a shot at the pursuing cops, but he misses. Rawdon gets lassoed by Sparky, and Emma busts his violin over his head. Story number 4, Johnny Quick, the Black Knight. In Manhattan at dawn, a mysterious figure in black medieval armor, wielding a big spike club, attacks a cop and beats him unconscious or dead, then clanks away. The Black Knight is bulletproof and talkative and smashes some expensive statues belonging to the very wealthy art collectors Sam Porter and Harrison Camden. Late that afternoon at a big gallery, Johnny Chambers and Tubby Watts are filming the opening of an art show when the Black Knight shows up to smash the rare sculptures. Johnny Quick, still in civvies, thwarts him, but the Knight escapes out an upper-story window into an open sedan and away with no pursuit. At the art show, Johnny overhears a conversation between Atmos Green and some other secretive rich guys and follows up to visit them in costume at the very exclusive Century Club. According to these guys, Black Knight is the real name of a formerly wealthy art collector who had gotten screwed over in a high-stakes arts transaction by another art collector, Sam Kirby, who turns out also to be a member of this club, and who runs into the room at that moment with a small broken statue. According to Sam, the Black Knight has just attacked him and is now leaving the building. Johnny chases and catches the Knight, and gets punched out and abducted. Johnny Quick loses his super speed powers when he's knocked unconscious. Outskirts of town, this Black Knight has got a castle with a dungeon with a pit and a pendulum, where Quick regains consciousness, escapes from the death trap, removes his gag, and regains his super speed. Black Knight has stayed on the scene to properly gloat, and there's a second fist fight, which Johnny isn't really winning, until a nearby lightning strike interferes with the Knight's motor skills. But the Knight quickly recovers and uses a trapdoor to drop Johnny into a lower level of his dungeon, into an elaborate hall of mirrors. He also announces his next target, a statue owned by Mr. Green. Quick uses high-speed trial and error to find his way out, then meteors his way over to Green's house, arriving just as the Knight is confronting Green. He modifies an ordinary radio set to create an electrical disturbance, which paralyzes the Black Knight, which turns out to be a radio-controlled electric robot, and which was used by Sam Kirby in a plot to conceal his theft of some very expensive statues.
Story number 5. Clip Carson in Secret Mission in Honduras. Clip Carson, doing business as Mr. Jones, travels on a secret mission to Honduras, hotbed of revolution and counter-revolution. A spy working for the Avenger begins to shadow him as he checks into a hotel. The spy is caught by Clip in his room and gets punched out. Hotel staff call the authorities. Soon Capitano Party is in charge of the scene. Along with taking charge of the suspect, Party requires Mr. Jones to register like all foreigners at his headquarters, as was recently directed by General Almos. Party departs with the captured spy, with whom he soon turns out to be in cahoots with. The spy tells him Carson's real identity. Clip proceeds to visit President Camapo, in whose office he meets General Almos and Mr. Malvilla, a very frustrated and angry importer. Camapo briefs Carson about the local guerrillas led by the Avenger for receiving arms from an unknown source. Leaving the meeting, and at Captain Party's orders, Clip is detained by a Honduran soldier to be escorted to headquarters for registration, except really he's led into an alley and ambushed by at least 3 more soldiers. In the brief scuffle, he's knocked over the head with a pistol butt and captured. He's whisked to the Avenger's hideout and tied into a chair. The Avenger's big plan is to take over the presidency and to export Honduran rubber and tin to a new foreign buyer. He and his men then leave Carson guarded by one rifleman, and not a very bright one at that. Carson lures him within chin-kicking distance by bumming a cigarette and knocks him out, then escapes. Then, based on some fairly improbable clues, he figures out that the Avenger and his gang are at Mr. Malvilla's importing facility. At the warehouse, the treasonous conspirators are in the midst of unpacking their shipment of weapons when Clip bursts in, finds a pistol, wins a very short shootout with General Almos, and arrests Malvilla and at least 2 soldiers. Later, he and President Camapo discuss the plot and indulge in some mild gloating. Story number 6. The Spectre in The Vanishing Menaces. A volcano erupts in the center of Clifton. Jim Corrigan rides to the scene in the police chief's patrol car, while the invisible Spectre rises out of Jim's body and flies ahead to the scene of the emergency and finds a huge epidermal volcano looming high over the metropolis skyscrapers, discharging real rocks and lava upon the helpless town. The Man of Darkness uses his powers to turn the advancing wave of lava into a brilliant display of fireworks. Then he leaps into the crater for a closer look, but the volcano vanishes, leaving behind only destruction. The chief characteristically blames the Spectre, and Corrigan vows to renew his efforts to capture him. That evening, Jim and Clarice go on to what may be their final date. Miss Winston has made up her mind that Jim must propose to her or else. That awkward conversation hardly gets started when a lion attacks them. Jim fights and defeats the lion with his bare hands. Then a giraffe runs by. In fact, a large number of wild animals are suddenly running amok through the city. Corrigan drives Clarice home, changes identities, and invisibly intervenes by growing into a tremendous size and plucking the animals off the streets and depositing them at the city zoo, where he is surprised to learn that these beasts may not have escaped from there. Later at police headquarters, Jim and the chief are surprised by a visit from Matt Tyler, the famous explorer who is himself surprised to be in Clifton instead of Africa. A purple haze had formed around him, and suddenly he was thousands of miles away. Jim leaves that meeting, gets a phone call from somebody who claims to know the reason for the mysterious goings-on. He dematerializes and flashes along the telephone wires toward the source of the call, but before he can arrive, the phone connection is broken, and the Spectre is momentarily stymied. He ghosts his way into the telephone company's building, glances through some records, and gets an address, 2411 Lebanon Road. Arriving at the darkened house, the Spectre finds a chained-up man and a ray machine inside. And just when the ray shines on the man, engulfing him in a purple haze, the specter leaps into the haze. They both vanish from Cliffland and materialize in Africa in the path of an elephant stampede. One rapid rescue and a high-speed intercontinental flight later, they are back in Cliffland, where the man turns out to be Morton Kirk, inventor of a space-folding machine, accidental creator of the day's earlier havoc. Kirk claims that his assistant, Nat Rhodes, captured him, set him up in front of the teleportation ray, and now plans to blackmail the entire city. At that moment, Rhodes is on the radio broadcasting his demand for $1 million. He rains giant icebergs onto the city, crushing several skyscrapers. The Spectre streaks in and hurls the icebergs into outer space. Rhodes uses the ray to purple haze him away to some distant place. Instead, through some freak law of the universe, the Spectre is hurled into the occult void in a paralyzed state. At a radio station in Cliffland, the mayor voices the city's defiance of Rhodes' extortion, so Rhodes teleports a gigantic volume of ocean water into town, wreaking further havoc. Rhodes no longer cares whether he himself lives or dies when Morton Kirk breaks into his lab and attacks him. Meanwhile, in the occult void, an occult monster attacks the Spectre, who rallies up one final effort and punches the monster into tiny pieces. He streaks back to the material world, finds Clifford flooded, waves his hand, and sends all the water back to its source. Then flies to the lab where Rose and Kirk are fighting. The space folding ray is activated, and both men are transported to a distant ocean. Both plummet into it, and both die, taking the secret of the invention to the grave before the Spectre can interfere. The Spectre then smashes the space folding mechanism with his fist, declaring that it is too dangerous to exist. The Chief reluctantly comes to understand that the day's horrendous events could not be blamed on the Spectre, but Corrigan's standing orders are still to arrest him. Story number 7. Aquaman, the submarine strikes. An unarmed ship carrying refugees and hospital workers is torpedoed by a submarine U-112, which surfaces to open fire on the last of the escaping lifeboats. Aquaman arrives and tows this boat away from the scene at an incredible speed. He then leaps aboard the sub and beats up one crewman, but the rest escape inside the hatches as the sub dives below the ocean. Aquaman and some porpoises speed the lifeboat to the nearest land, where the captain asks him where he's from and how he does these miracles. Aquaman tells him that his father, a famous underwater explorer, found an ancient sunken city, built himself a watertight home within one of the palaces, and lived there studying the records and devices of the ancient race. Here he found wonders that the upper world had never known. Aquaman names neither of his parents in this telling, knowing only that his mother died when he was a baby. He also mentions that his father used 100 scientific secrets to enable him to draw oxygen from the water to develop his speed, strength, and mental powers. His father then died. Having told his tale, Aquaman leaves to hunt for the U-112 and finds it docked at its base, a little-known island near the sea lanes with the captain already ashore. According to a superior officer, Aquaman punches his fist through the steel hull and the sub sinks right there at the pier. There's no sign of any escaping crewmen on the pier. The captain and his boss run away to hide in the base arsenal, and as Aquaman is about to batter down the door, the sub-captain's boss manages to drop a hammer onto his head, knocking him senseless. Then they load him up with weights and drop him into the ocean. At first, the extreme pressure at this depth prevents him from bursting his bonds, but he exploits a bulb-like undersea plant which gives off a bright greenish fluid. This acts as a signal for Aquaman's porpoise friends to propel him into a shallower water, where the lightened pressure enables him to burst free. Aquaman knifes through the water like a flashing silver scimitar back to the enemy base, where he punches out the U-112's captain and chases the captain's boss into the arsenal. He throws a hand grenade at Aquaman, who catches and returns it. The grenade detonates the munition supply, and the high official is killed.
Green Arrow's car is referred to as the Aeroplane in this issue. Later it will be known as the Arrow car, and he will have a separate aeroplane that is an airplane. The Aeroplane car is equipped with a powerful catapult under the driver's seat. It really does look like Green Arrow killed Ezra Sampson on purpose. In these early appearances, Oliver Queen has brown hair. In later issues, his hair color changes to blonde. Created in 1940 by Morton Weisinger and George Papp, Oliver Queen was first introduced into the DC Universe in issue 73 of More Fun Comics because publishers were nervous about relying too heavily on Batman and Superman in their comics. With Batman being such a successful and popular character, the publishers wanted a hero that was close enough to Batman in order to give the readers the same sense of adventure, but also give the Dark Knight some time out of the spotlight. Not only did Green Arrow have a lot of the same tech as Batman, but his character traits mirrored those of Bruce Wayne during the 40s. Both had their alter ego centric cars and devices that aided them in their crusades against crime lords and drug dealers. As Batman grew to take on villains that were larger than life, Green Arrow has always focused more on the street level crime fighting of an everyday vigilante. It wasn't until the 60s that Green Arrow was able to come out from under the shadow of Batman and really begin to grow into his own character. Although they still have similarities, Ollie has thrived by remaining a street level vigilante. Many people recognize Green Arrow for his signature use of boxing glove arrows. What many people don't know is that, like Batman, Ollie actually has a plethora of different gadgets that he uses. Many are trick arrows, but he has had other gadgets as well. These allow him to get out of many dangerous situations he and his arrow family get into, as well as remind the audience that he is so much more than a man in a mask. In most incarnations, Ollie has always wanted to be a member of the Justice League. He's been a member since the 60s and has always rejoined after the universes were reset. However, the Green Arrow that many of the younger generation remember growing up with was the Ollie in the Justice League Unlimited show. This Oliver was very reluctant to join the team and didn't believe that the League was the right place for him. Oliver felt like the League's involvement in world threatening conflicts made them overlook the everyday victims of street level crime. Many in the League tried to convince him to join the League to use his convictions to remind the other heroes of what really mattered. Ollie eventually joined the team and became Batman's most trusted member of the League. Batman wanted Green Arrow to be the team's conscience, and Ollie subsequently prevented events that would have let the League become like the Justice Lords, the League's draconian anti democratic counterpart in a dystopian alternative future. This reluctance was a great shakeup to Ollie's character from the comics, but was understandable when you consider that he was always been concerned with protecting the little guy. Green Arrow hasn't always had a solo series. In fact, it would not be until 1987 when Mike Grell began writing his adventures that he would have an ongoing solo series. His first appearance was in the backup feature in More Fun Comics, later replacing Dr. Fate and Spectre as the cover feature 4 months later. They were also given the cover treatment in Leading Comics #1, an early team-up book. During the first season of Arrow, many fans were angry that Oliver had kept dropping bodies left and right. People who thought they knew a little about the character knew that he has some kind of moral code similar to Batman, and that he doesn't kill. However, fans of the character with a bit more background know that there's a bit more to Green Arrow. Ollie hasn't killed a whole lot throughout his career, but being the hot tempered, passionate man that he is, Green Arrow has given in to the temptation before. For instance, when the villain Prometheus murdered a lot of people in Star City with a malfunctioning teleportation scheme, which would have teleported the city to another world, Roy Harper's daughter is murdered during the explosion. With Roy losing his arm and his daughter, Ollie tracked down Prometheus and shot an arrow right between his eyes, doing what he thought was just considering the pain and suffering Prometheus had created. In 1994, the DCU was rocked by the line-wide event Zero Hour, where Hal Jordan as Parallax is revealed to be the one responsible for trying to recreate the universe, claiming the time stream is not right and needs some changes. To recreate the universe, the current one had to be wiped out of existence. Ollie continues to believe that Hal, one of his best and most trusted friends, did not become evil. But when he finally confronted his friend and seeing that Hal had crossed the line, he was forced into action during the final battle. Oliver, realizing his mortality, concludes that he doesn't have the luxury of ever hesitating and shoots Hal in the chest, stopping Parallax and ultimately saving the universe. Green Arrow made the ultimate sacrifice to save Metropolis during the events of the 1994 miniseries Zero Hour and became a martyr. In order to carry on his father's legacy and continue protecting the everyday man, Connor Hawke took on the mantle of the Green Arrow, although his time was short lived thanks to Hal Jordan's Spectre resurrecting Ollie. Connor left his mark on the Green Arrow persona. Aquaman can communicate with sea life and creatures through telepathy, and he can even gain complete control over all of them. This means that Aquaman can control dangerous sea animals such as sharks, whales, and stingrays to attack the enemies on his behalf. Born to Atlan, the evil wizard, and Atlanta, the queen of Atlantis, Young Aquaman was born with blonde hair. This was considered inauspicious in Atlantean culture, causing him to be left for dead on a reef in the open. However, he also had the ability to breathe on land. With the ability to talk to animals as well, Aquaman was raised by dolphins until he met Arthur Curry, a lighthouse keeper who taught him how to be more human-like. You might be familiar with how Aquaman fell in love with Mera after meeting her for the first time. However, she held a secret for years. She was a queen in another dimension, but felt a sense of belonging in Atlantis despite being treated as an outsider. After losing their child in a battle, she and Aquaman parted ways, with her returning to her dimension. However, they started their romance again in 2010's Brightest Arc Day. She admitted that she was supposed to travel to another dimension to kill Aquaman, but fell in love with him instead. The Aqua family is bigger than some fans know, but not all the members are heroes like Aquaman and Mera. Aquaman's father was an evil wizard. Some of his love interests are questionable, and his brother is certainly a problem. Aquaman's half brother is known as the Ocean Master. He is scarred and angry and soon becomes one of Aquaman's greatest enemies despite their family ties. When he was the king of Atlantis, Aquaman was constantly fighting his enemies and villains as well. As mentioned previously, his own half brother was jealous of him and turned into a supervillain. When Aquaman found out, he spiraled into depression. His sidekick Aqualad wanted to cheer him up by bringing them to an investigation. Turns out it was only a trap created by Charybdis. He wanted to kill Aquaman in a pool full of piranhas. However, he missed and fell into the pool instead, while Aquaman only lost his hand to the piranhas. Later, he replaced his missing hand with a hook. I hope you enjoyed this look into More Fun Comics issue number 73 as we celebrated the first appearances of Green Arrow and Aquaman. If you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell for future notifications. Today is the last day for nominations for the CBC Awards. If you want to nominate your favorite YouTube content creators, today's the last day to do it. After that, it's all over with. So head over to www.cbcawards.com, www.cbcawards.org to nominate your favorite YouTube content creators before it's too late. Sunday night over on Collecting with Durz's YouTube channel, he's going to be doing his 1K subscriber giveaway. So if you're not doing anything, go to his channel and check out that live stream. He has really worked hard for this milestone, and let's go out there and show him the love and support, y'all, because he really does deserve it. Ready for him to hit that 2K, and he'll do it before you know it. So congratulations on hitting that 1K. I believe he's probably at close to 1,500 by now. But yes, congratulations, and I will hopefully be a part of that celebration tomorrow night or Sunday night. Excuse me. Coming up over on my buddy S82's YouTube channel, Monday night we have the episode 30 of Comic Book Addicts featuring Jason Carpenter. You should check that out. Comic Book Addicts is a really awesome series that Scott does. He has a real passion for this series, and every episode is worth checking out. I think you'd really enjoy it. And over on Wednesday night, he's going to team up with Frankie's BS, and they're going to unveil their new live show, You Collect What, which is going to focus on collections. And a lot of us are going to be on there showcasing some of our collections. The first episode is going to be about Transformers. So I'll be on there, hopefully, and showing off some of my Transformers toys. That should be a lot of fun. So check that out Wednesday night. And join us back next week for Tony's Comic Spotlight as we take a look at the first appearance of Barry Allen as the Flash in Showcase issue number 4. So that will be pretty interesting. And until next time, thanks for watching. Take it easy, be safe, and God bless. See ya.